Hello everyone, I'm here with a bit of a different video for me today. So this is going to be a travel vlog of my latest trip. I've just been on a bucket list trip. If you follow me on my other social media, so on TikTok or Instagram, you'll have seen all the spam already. So this is going to be a travel vlog of Cappadocia and Istanbul in Turkey. I'm going to go through where we stayed, how we travelled, like what airlines, things like that, how much things cost and our budget, and things we would recommend and things we probably wouldn't recommend so much. So there's lots of information coming your way. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the comments below and I will get back to you. But let's start with our travel day. Okay, travel day. So we flew from Manchester to Istanbul and then from Istanbul to Cappadocia. So for the first flight, we flew with EasyJet. I'll pop the price of the flight on the screen. This is including a 23 kg suitcase, and obviously you get your hand luggage as well. This flight was really smooth. I think we flew at 8 AM, got to Istanbul around lunchtime, and we had a 7-hour layover. So because we'd self-connected, we booked our flight separately, we could leave the airport. So it was the plan that we were going to leave the airport, go into Istanbul, get some food, and come back ready for our next flight to try and break the day up a little bit. Sounds perfect. Naive or stupid, not quite sure. But we left our suitcases. There was a place you can pay to leave your suitcases. I think it cost us about £7 for the 2 cases for 4 hours, which I thought was a great deal, to be fair. Might not have even been that much. Dropped our case off and we trotted off to the Met. Because we could have got an Uber in, but it was about £40 for an Uber, whereas getting on the Met's a couple of quid. So we thought, we'll go and get on the Met. So we walked down to the Met stop, trying to figure out how to use the machines. So to get on the Met, you have to have certain cards, which you can buy on the machines. However, we didn't have a clue which card we needed. Asked a member of staff who was the least helpful person, so didn't get any further with that. There were a couple of lads who were sat on the bench next to us who, I'm sure they said they were from Finland, I think. They said that they were going home and they donated their cards to us because we clearly looked pathetic by this point. Their cards were loaded with money. I think they only had a couple of quid on, but that's all you need to get from one to the other. So we got on the Met. Now, I am not a public transport girl. It is well known that I do not do public transport. I don't know where I'm going or anything like that. Luckily, I was travelling with my friend Scouse. She works for Avanti in the UK, so is in and out of London, knows the tube, knows all that sort of stuff. So she took full control in this situation because I am none the wiser. So we get on the Met, we go to the end of the first line, we're like, we'll just go there because there'll be somewhere for food and then it's easier to get back, we're not swapping and changing. So we went to the end of the first line, we came out in a huge Met station, like an underground. I think it took us about 15 minutes to figure out how to get out of there, which turned out we just came out and turned left rather than right or something stupid like that. Anyway, we managed to get ourselves out, we came out in like a shopping mall where we found some food, we got some food, thought, oh, this is going really well, absolutely fine. We were quite conscious of the time, so by this point it's about 5 o'clock. So we're like, right, we need to head back because we needed to check in for about 6:30. So start to head back to the Met, get on the Met. When I tell you we went down, I think there were 16 escalators. This place is massive, huge. We then get back to the airport for about 6 o'clock. So by this point, slightly stressed, but okay. We've got half an hour to get in the airport, get our cases and check in. It should be fine. So we walked down to the door where we'd left our suitcases to find out that this door is an exit only and you cannot get in the building there. So we had to walk all the way down to the other end of the building where you get in, which was probably a 10-minute walk. So by this time, slightly stressed. Get into the airport, with it being a Turkish airport, you have to go through security before you get into the building. So you go through the scanners and all that sort of stuff. So that takes a few minutes. We then have to walk to get our suitcases from the other end of the airport, which he says your check-in desk is the other end of the airport. So we've done like 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and now by this point, we're a bit stressed. So we're sort of legging it towards check-in. Managed to check in fine. All I would say is we then flew with Turkish Airlines for our domestic flight, so from Istanbul to Cappadocia. This flight, the luggage is included in your ticket, however, it's only 16 kg. So we'd flown with 23 kg, which we obviously didn't use that full amount because we were aware of this. And we planned that when we packed our bags, we packed it in packing cubes. So we could just take one of them out, put it in our hand luggage, so the weight was even, which worked really well for us. So just be aware if you are self-connecting or you've got connecting flights and they're not the same luggage, be aware that you do need to swap and change stuff around. So we did that. Managed to make it to the plane on time. Not quite sure how. We were absolutely boiling by this point because we've been running around like lunatics thinking we had all the time in the world when we didn't. So would I leave the airport if I did that again? Probably not, because that was a bit stressful. But you know, it was fine. We managed to make it. We then got on the plane, landed in Cappadocia, and we've gone from the biggest airport I think I've ever been to. I'm going to say it's probably bigger than Dubai airport. It was huge, Istanbul airport. And we landed in what I would describe as a prefab. Like, it wasn't even a proper building, I don't think. We got off the plane, there was a conveyor belt outside that went through this corridor and the exit was there. So you literally just walked through, got your case and left. It was bizarre. We had pre-booked our transfers with the hotel. So I booked our hotel on booking.com. I'll go into that in a minute. But through booking.com, you could book a transfer or I could book it through the hotel. And I think it was 15 euros each through the hotel, which was cheaper than what I could get on booking.com. Because I will always vary. I find booking.com's quite often quite cheap for transfers, but on this occasion it was not. So we got out, the transfer was there waiting for us, and we were straight to our hotel. We stayed at Asteria Cave Hotel. Now, when I've been looking at hotels for Cappadocia, lots of people were recommending that you do your research and make sure that if they're saying they're a cave hotel, they are. There are a lot of places that say cave and have cave in the name, but they are not actually cave hotels. I can 100% guarantee you that Asteria is a cave hotel. Our room was in the cave, we had no windows. Which sounds really dingy. It wasn't. It was absolutely beautiful. It was cosy, we had radiators on there. I was a bit concerned it was going to be cold, but it wasn't. We had radiators that we could turn on and off. There was extra heaters. It was lovely. Really, really nice hotel. I would stay there again and I would definitely recommend it. So Asteria is at the top of the hill, because you're in the cave, you're in one of the mountains. But the staff were absolutely incredible. When we first arrived, we met the lad on reception, Ahmed, who was the most helpful person you could ever meet. The first thing he did was give his number on WhatsApp. Anything we needed, cup of tea, water, towels, anything, we could text him and he would sort it out for us. It is a bed and breakfast, so your breakfast is included. The Turkish breakfast every morning was absolutely beautiful. Always fresh. There was simit, simit's bread by the way, it's breads, simit, cheeses, jams, eggs, like beautiful, beautiful, beautiful food. You could get tea, coffee, juice, water, whatever you wanted as well with that. Always fresh. Never ever had a bad experience with our breakfast. It was beautiful. Other than that, staff were really helpful as well. If we needed taxis or advice of where to go, we also booked a couple of trips through. Ahmed, in the end, we booked in fact, I'll go into the trips in a later date. We'll come back to that. So, hotel, absolutely beautiful. Now on to our first day. So on our first day, we planned to do the hot air balloon. So we've travelled on the Wednesday. Thursday morning, we planned to do the hot air balloon. So we'd pre-booked this with turquoise balloons. However, when we landed in Istanbul on the Wednesday, we'd had a text saying the weather was bad, so they were cancelling the balloons the next morning and they were refunding our deposit. So you pay a deposit, if you pre-book it, you pay a deposit online and then you pay the remainder when you get to the booking on the day. So they'd cancelled it and refunded us the deposit. So I just said, most people, when they come to Cappadocia, when they go to Cappadocia, they stay for 1 or 2 days, whereas we were staying for a bit longer because I wanted to guarantee I got on the hot air balloon. That was the whole reason I wanted to go. I didn't want to go all that way and not actually do the one thing I wanted to do. So I said to them, we're not travelling until the Monday, so we could fly Friday, Saturday or Sunday if you've got any availability any of those days. The only availability they had was Sunday, so we'd said, when we go to the hotel, if we can speak to the staff there and get an earlier balloon, can we still do that and cancel it and get our money back? And they said, absolutely, you've got till 12 o'clock tomorrow, which was the Thursday, to let us know which one you want to do. Perfect. So we got to the hotel, we spoke to the staff, and we decided that on the Thursday we were going to go out into the area and have a look and speak to some other balloon companies, because there's so many. As we were leaving the hotel, the turquoise balloons rang me and said, we've got a cancellation for tomorrow, which would be the Friday, if you'd like that. So we were like, yeah, perfect, book us in, sorted. So balloon stress was over, we were hoping by this point, because I was thinking if we'd gone all that way and not gotten a balloon, I was very stressed. So we'd booked that for the day after, so we had our first day, Thursday, we thought, right, well, we've got no plans, what we're going to do? So we went and had a bit of a wander. We started off by going up to Sunset View, which is sort of up and behind the hotel where we were staying. You do have to pay to get up the hill. I think it was about 50p each maximum. It wasn't a lot of money at all. We then got up there. What I would say is don't underestimate the hills in Cappadocia. I've been warned about the hills in Istanbul, how hilly it is. The hills in Cappadocia are no joke. Now, looking back now, that's quite stupid. Of course it's hilly. Like, when you look at the pictures, it looks very hilly. It's all mountains and the chimneys. But in my head, I didn't think it was going to be as hilly as it was. And I mean, they are steep hills. I wasn't mentally or physically prepared. Definitely not physically prepared for how big, steep some of those hills were. But it was fine. So we went up there. We then went for a wander. Saw lots of animals, all the cats and the dogs. If you know Turkey at all, you'll know there's lots of cats and dogs. And they are all very well looked after, they're all very well fed. We went out on food, and we decided later on we were going to go up to Love Valley. So we went back to the hotel, got changed, and the one of the members of staff rang us a taxi, and we went to Love Valley. So we were going to walk to Love Valley, but it was saying like it was a 2-hour walk. I didn't have that in me today, if I was honest. So we got a taxi. I think it was about £3 there. The taxi driver waited, went and had a cup of tea with his friends. We went and enjoyed Love Valley, and then he said, text me when you're ready to go back, and then we got back in and paid for the taxi home. So we didn't have to pay while he waited for us. We just paid for the journeys. But again, the locals are so helpful over there. I would recommend that massively. So we spent our day doing that, and then we went out for tea. We didn't have a late one because obviously we had to be up early for the balloon. So early night, and then it was the big day. So balloon day. When I tell you I was excited, oh my life. The only thing I wasn't excited for was getting up at 4 a.m. So our transfer was picking us up at 4:50. So we got up at 4 to get ready. Was ready for about 1:45, so went downstairs, and the bus was waiting for us ready. Perfect. We got picked up. We picked a couple of other people up on the way and got took to the office where you pay the remainder of your balance. I'll put how much we paid on screen. It is a little bit more pricey than some of the other balloons. However, we got breakfast and things and other things included. And when I was doing my research, this was the one company that was recommended by so many people. And I have to say, our experience with them was great from start to finish. Even the aftermath, you get follow-up customer service things and everything. They've been absolutely fabulous. Would definitely recommend this company. So we got picked up, we went and paid the rest of our money. And that's where you get your breakfast. So there is lots of bread, simmet, cheeses, meats, loads of pastries, juices, water, tea, coffee, chai, all that sort of stuff. So we had our breakfast. We got a briefing, a safety briefing, where if they crash land, how you have to land in the basket, which, spoiler alert, didn't happen for us, thankfully, because I'm not sure my body would have coped. But yeah, luckily we didn't crash land, so it was fine. So we had breakfast. They then came in and said, by this point, sorry, you already knew who your pilot was. Ours was Abdullah. So we were told that we had to listen out for the name Abdullah. They came in after about 20 minutes saying we needed to delay the flights because of the weather. So they were going to give it 15 minutes and then make a decision from there. So by this point, my stress levels were high. I'm thinking, please don't cancel this again. This is not what I need in my life. It came in 20 minutes later and said, again, we're just going to give it a little bit longer just because it's spitting a little bit and the weather's a little bit dubious. They cannot make a decision to fly unless it is obviously safe, which is fair enough. It's aviation rules, which obviously they have to follow the rules, and I'd rather not have my balloon not float, if I'm honest. We went out. In fact, at that point then I was like, right, I'm just going to go outside and get some signal because we were in a cave. There was no signal on my phone. So I was like, I'm going to go out and see what the weather is like. As I go to leave, the manager says, can everyone just go back inside because we're going to start announcing pilots. So I'm like, yes, we're ready, we're going. First pilot, the shout was Abdullah, so we were off. Great. So we're in a minibus, you get taken to the top of the hill. As you're getting up, there's some balloons setting off, there's balloons being blown up, things like that. You get shown to your balloon. So at the point when we got there, the basket was on its side, the balloon was blowing up along the path, floor, ground, whatever. The balloon was blowing up. It was actually really fascinating how they did it and how quickly the balloons fill. So then as the basket stands up, they then rush you to get in, so you get some steps to get in. Because I'm not going to lie, a lot of my friends have been taking the mick out why I'm not going to be able to get in and out of this basket. I am not the most able person. I have problems with my hips and my knees. Do you know, as a 30-odd-year-old, I'm a bit broken. So it's been the laugh of the town of me trying to get in and out of this balloon, and people wanted videos and filming of me getting in and out of this balloon. Luckily, I was actually very good, so it was fine. So you climb into the balloon, you get ladders, it was fine, we were in, and then we took off quite quickly. The pilot was really good at explaining everything. Again, you go through a safety briefing of how you land. If there is a crash landing, so I have to squat back, this thing handles for you to hold on to. But again, they explain everything to you. We went off, we had a view, like the view was unreal. Watching everyone take off, watching all the balloons around you. You go into different valleys, so you go into Love Valley and Pigeon Valley and all the different ones. You go into Gorm, they show you all the different places. It was so good. I'm really sorry you can hear that dog. My neighbour's walking his dog past the house. Doesn't sound very happy, does it? But yeah, I would highly recommend doing a balloon ride. So I'm just going to leave you with some nice balloon videos now.
Okay, ready? And to be honest, this is the main reason that's why I become a pilot. Every morning start with champagne. Okay, 1, 2, and fly!
Woo!
Well, if you don't like champagne or if you do not prefer to drink champagne at this time, we have hot chocolate and orange juice too, or you can make me.
So the other things I would recommend in Cappadocia is obviously walking around. There is so many walks. There's the open air museum you could walk to, where I went one morning on my own, let my friend have a lie in. I went off, I had breakfast and then went on for a walk up there on my own. That was really nice. Our weather wasn't roasting. It was about 17, 18 degrees most days. It was quite cloudy and overcast, which was quite nice because we were doing a lot of walking. It wasn't unbearable. It was quite nice. We also did one of the coach trips where we went up and saw some different things. We went in one of the caves and did all that sort of thing. That was a good day actually. Got food included, we got picked up and dropped off. It was a full day thing. We then got back from that and went and had tea and then went to bed because we were absolutely exhausted. We also did on our last day. Now I probably wouldn't recommend this if I'm honest. We booked they call them the ATVs, I would call it a quad. We booked one of the sunset quad tours, which I think if we'd have had different people in our group, it would have been a better experience. So it was basically, we had the lead, there was a Turkish couple on one quad, and then there were two young girls on individual quads who'd clearly never ridden a bike, let alone driven a car, because we were going painfully slow. They kept crashing, they kept stalling, they kept rolling back. So it sort of ruined our experience a little bit. They were going quite slow. So when we got to one of the points, the guy was like, "Are you having fun?" I was like, "No, this is really boring. Why are we going so slow? This is really, really bad." So he's like, "Oh, do you like adventure?" So I said, "Yeah." So I got on the back of this this Turkish man's quad bike, the guide, and probably nearly died, to be honest. We went down like sheer drops, round corners on two wheel. It was great fun. I am an adrenaline junkie. That was the best bit about it. The actual tour. I mean, you went to nice places. Went to places that we did Love Valley, which obviously we've been to before, but we did other places where we'd not been. But yeah, I think it might have been the fact the girls were really slow on ours that made it a bit boring. I think if it was a bit faster paced, it would have been a bit more fun. I mean, I did keep wandering off on my own and I kept getting shouted at, but it was just a bit slow. So I wouldn't personally recommend that, but again, I think it was mainly because of who was in our group rather than the actual tour. We booked that through our hotel, along with the minibus trip. I have to say the tour guides on the minibuses were absolutely sensational. Absolutely great. They had us laughing all day, and that was really good. The lunch again there was really good as well, included. But yeah, they're the two trips that we did other than the balloon, and then we took ourselves to other places. But as a whole, Cappadocia is absolutely beautiful. I would definitely recommend it. There's lots and lots of traditional things there, traditional food to try. We had the pot kebab, where they cook a kebab in a pot. It's more like a stew, I would say. But I had two of those. I had a chicken one and a traditional one, and they were really nice. I think the traditional one might be veal. Can't remember. But they were really nice. They were lovely. And of course, P-Day. If you've ever been to Turkey and you've never had a P-Day, where are you? Because P-Day is my all-time favourite. Love. It's like a Turkish pizza. Absolutely beautiful. But yeah, Cappadocia was a definite bucket list trip and lived up to expectations. I had an absolute great time. So it's now travel day, so we're back to Istanbul today. So we got up, our transfer was picking us up at 8 o'clock. Now breakfast at the hotel doesn't start till 8:30, so we were like, it's fine, we'll get some breakfast when we get to the airport, to the smallest airport in the world. However, we got up, packed our bag, got ready and stuff. We were ready for about 7:45. Went out and fed the cat because one of the cats in the hotel had a kitten, so we were looking after it. The hotel are still looking after her. I'm still getting cat updates now. She's very cute. I'll put a picture of her. We called the mum Salem and the kittens Sabrina. Not sure if it's a Sabrina or a Sebastian just yet, but you know, very cute. They are looking after the cat. Anyway, this was about 7:45 and Ahmed from reception texted me and said, "Are you going to come down for breakfast?" We're like, "Oh, we're leaving at 8. He'd booked our transfer. He said, "Oh, it's fine, we'll cook for you." So we went downstairs and they very nicely made us an early breakfast, which was very nice. So we got to eat before we went to the airport. Got to the airport and yeah, absolutely. I actually think I was surprised at how big the bit was we were checked in. It's all in one room basically. There is a shop, there's a toilet. Other than that, there's not much else. There's the check-in desk, so you then go through security, where you can take liquids because it's a domestic. So if you bought liquids at the shop, you can take them through. We did that. Boarded the plane. Again, we got fed on the plane. We got a drink and a sandwich. We got to Istanbul. And in Istanbul, we booked... I had a look at transfers. Transfers to the hotel were really expensive. They were coming up about £100. The same through booking.com. So in the end, I just used Uber. Now, Uber didn't work in Cappadocia. However, in Istanbul, we used Uber quite a bit. The Uber was about, I think it was like £35 it cost us to get from the airport, and we were staying in Sultanahmet, right near the water. Probably wouldn't recommend the hotel we stayed in. I mean, it was clean. We stayed in the Walnut House Hotel, I think it was called. It was clean. The stairs, no. It was a spiral staircase. Yeah. The man said, "I'll carry your suitcases up." And Sky said, I'll do it. I said, "No, you won't. There is no way we're carrying our suitcases up there." The staff were very helpful. They carried the suitcases up and down. The breakfast again there was beautiful. However, the hotel probably wasn't the best location for where we wanted to be. And I think we'd just been spoilt with the cave hotel that it just wasn't the same. It was quite small, the room. But yeah, so we stayed there while we were in Istanbul. We did quite a lot of walking. The Thursday, so we arrived at our hotel at about 2:00. So from there we went into Istanbul. Now the day we arrived, the weather was horrendous, like torrential rain, freezing cold. The wind was harsh, it was bitter, it was awful. So we went for a walk, we got a brew, and then decided we were going to go into the bazaar just to hide, basically. And we spent hours in the bazaar. We bought loads of presents, spent loads of money. And I have to say, if you've ever been to Turkey before, like I go to Izmir a lot, and Marmaris is obviously just down the road from Izmir, and I will go into the bazaar in Marmaris, and you get hounded. When you walk through that, everyone's shouting at you. Istanbul airport, I was preparing my scouts for going in, I said, just be prepared, people might start shouting. It was so chill. I was shocked. Nobody like shouted anything. If you went into the shop, they'd be like, oh, can I help you? Like, obviously people were helpful, but there was no shouting, no beckoning you in, none of that. It was lovely. It was how it should be. It was a beautiful experience. So we spent a long time in there. We then left there, got some food, decided to have an early night because by this point we were absolutely exhausted. So we went and got baklava and watched a film in bed because we are rock and roll kids like that. And then this is then our final full day. So we decided, I have got some friends who live in Istanbul, so we'd arranged to meet them in the afternoon. So in the morning we were like, right, we'll get up and go to the mosque. So we went into Blue Mosque. It's free to get into Blue Mosque. Would absolutely definitely recommend it. Just be aware, you do need to take your shoes off. Obviously, because you're going into a mosque, you can't wear your shoes inside. And ladies need to cover their hair, so just a scarf over your head, and you need your shoulders covered, obviously to be respectful. If you go without the attire, they will lend it to you for free. You can not hire it. They'll give it you for free, and then you give it back at the end. We obviously went when it was cold, so we had jeans and tops on, jackets and things anyway. Make sure you don't have holes in your socks if you've got to take shoes off. I'm matching socks on. So we had our trainers and we both took a headscarf, just a plain thin scarf to put over our heads anyway. So we went and did the mosque. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful experience. I think we were in there for about an hour and a half. It was lovely. In the end, we just sat in the square of the mosque, just people watching. It was just lovely to see everything. And of course, there were lots of cats in there, so that's for me. So we did that. We then went for a wander. We went and met my friends, Baron and Becky. Went and had a drink with them. And then later on, we went to the Galata Tower, which, the hills to get up there, yeah, there's no words. Especially because it was still quite cold at this point, getting later on in the day, so the breeze had picked up. So walking up there was an experience, shall we say. So we got up there, we saw Galata Tower, and we went for a San Sebastian cheesecake, which I would recommend. Now, I'm not really a cheesecake girl, I'm going to throw that out there. However, it was so light, it was beautiful. We had it with chocolate. But yeah, I would recommend that. So we had that, we then went for a wander, so we'd walked from one side to the other, so over the bridge, to walk back over the bridge. And I have to say, although it is hilly and places are quite far apart, like from Galata Tower to where we were staying was a 50-minute walk, but it didn't feel like that. I mean, a lot of it was downhill at this point, so that was quite nice. After all the uphills, the downhills was quite nice. But yeah, it didn't feel like a 50-minute walk. It was actually quite nice. I mean, we stopped a couple of times on the way back as well, went in a couple of shops. But yeah, I'd quite like to go back to Istanbul. We didn't spend much time there at all, because obviously the main thing was I wanted to go on a balloon in Cappadocia. So I will go back to Istanbul at some point and do some other bits, because there's so much to do there. It's absolutely huge. It was a bit of a shell shock from going from Cappadocia, where everything's calm and chilled, to Istanbul, where everything is. It's like Manchester, so I'm from Manchester. I live quite close to the city centre. I've lived in the city centre. It is like Manchester times 500. Like, it is a lot. It's like Manchester on match day, on Derby day. That is like Istanbul all the time. So everyone beeping the horns, there's nowhere to cross the roads, it is manic. So that was a bit of a shell shock from going from calm to that. However, would definitely go back to Istanbul. People were lovely, it was very clean, there was so much to do there. Like, I would definitely recommend. So this is now travel day. This is our very final day. So the plan was to go to Istanbul airport early after the chaos of the time before. So we check out of our hotel was 11 a.m. No, it wasn't, it was 12. So we decided we were going to leave at 11:30 to give us enough time. So we got up, went for breakfast at the hotel, was really nice. Checked out, the man came and carried our suitcases down those horrendous stairs because I just couldn't. We booked an Uber, so we got an Uber about 11:30 and we were at the airport for 12:30. Now check-in didn't open for our flight until 1:10, but we were like, we'd rather get there early. So we were there, it's fine. We then went and checked in as soon as check-in opened. Now, when I say Istanbul airport is no joke, I mean it is no joke. We checked in as soon as check-in opened, absolutely fine. Went to security, the queue for security was not even that bad. I think we were at security maybe about half an hour, 40 minutes, which I don't think for Istanbul is that bad. I can queue that in Manchester. It's quite normal for me to travel places that are busy and have that. 40 minutes to get through security, probably not as bad as it has been in the past. We get through security. By this point, we're quite hungry, so we go and get some food. So we'd said, we'll get some food and we'll walk down to the gate and we'll sit and eat it at the gate. Perfect. So on the boards at this point, it's saying go to gate. So we can see where the gate is, fine. So we go and get our food. £30 for a salad. Can I add? £30 for a salad. Wasn't even that nice. Nearly cried. So I paid 30 quid for a salad. We then came out of there's like a food court section. We came out of that and found where the direction of the gate was. And it said on a sign, your gate is, I think it was 22-minute walk. Brilliant. So we start walking, we get down the escalators and then start, the escalators that go in a straight line, just all the way along the massive road. So we start traipsing down, and as we get to the next board, it says, your flight is boarding. So we're thinking, brilliant. So we're now walking, we get to the next board, a final call. We're still 15 minutes away from this gate. I'm thinking, you're joking. So we're now like running. I think they must put things like that on early because of how big the airport is to try and make people move. So we're now legging it down to the gate. We get to the gate, the queue is still fairly big. So we go to the toilet before we go up to get on the plane because I'm not a lover of plane toilets, if I'm honest. So we managed to get through, and for the first time, I'm going to say ever, I've come through a Turkish airport, I did not get the additional search. So if you fly through any Turkish airport, they have an additional check at boarding where people get you get basically drugs tested. So they swipe all your things for drugs and everything. And every single time I go through a Turkish airport, I always get selected. Every single time. Charles knows this from last year when we went to Ishmael. I got tested at the airport. Every single time. Always clear, can I add? Always fine. But yeah, I got tested. I didn't get chosen. I got straight through. I was amazed. However, Istanbul airport is great for people watching. We were playing a game of Spot the Cosmetic Surgery. There were lots of hair transplants, there were lots of nose jobs. In fact, there were about 4 or 5 nose jobs just on our plane, which I thought, okay, fair. Flight home was absolutely fine, and yeah, that was our travels. So, if you're flying through Istanbul airport, give yourself plenty of time. But I would highly, highly, highly recommend going to Cappadocia. It was absolutely beautiful. I'll put a total of what we spent at the bottom. Prices, although people say prices in Turkey are expensive, I really don't believe that they are. When we were in Cappadocia, we went to a really nice restaurant, like a restaurant attached to a 5-star hotel. Sort of like the Ivy vibes in Manchester, where Scouse had a leg of lamb and I had salmon, we had a few drinks each, and it came to £65. Now, if I was to go and have that same meal in Manchester, I'm probably looking at that each easily. I'd probably pay £65 just for mine, let alone a leg of lamb. So I don't think it is. Obviously, there's certain things that are a bit more expensive and you pay for certain things in tourist traps and things like that. However, I don't think that Turkey is expensive at all, not in comparison with here. It's more expensive than it used to be. However, their taxes have gone up 75% in the last 3 years. So just be aware of that. That's why their prices have gone up, because they are being taxed an obscene amount. But yeah, that is all from me. If you've got any questions about my travel or where I'm going next, we're on a countdown. I think it's 6 weeks. 6 weeks till my next one. But yeah, let me know if you would need any more information, and I will see you all soon. Thanks for watching. Bye!